Tonight, we bring you interviews from some of the most influential scientists of the past decade. From those that discovered new elements and made groundbreaking advances in their fields, to those that just wanted to teach our kids.
That's right. Every interviewee we're going to show you tonight is going to make you regret washing dishes for your useless husband and being a slave to society.
So, buckle up, it's the BZ Talk Show. And now, our first guest, Marie Curie. So, Miss Curie, what is it that your husband discovered?
Well, I discovered with my husband's help, yeah, radium and polonium, and they're two elements. One is radioactive. Is it hot in here? And so then I took radium and I stripped it down to the components, and I just looked into it, and it turns out that it can help people who are sick, and I just thought that was very important. Oh my god.
So, Mrs. Curie, what is it that helps these people?
Well, actually, we discovered during World War I that radium can be used for x-rays, and that is able to, we can look at soldiers and we can, look at their bones and everything, and we can decide if they need help. And actually a lot of the help that I got came from my daughter, Irene. So cute.
And your daughter, too?
That's so sweet that you and your daughter work together to help soldiers, but I think what the audience wants to know is, what about you? What made you who you are today?
Well, honestly, it was really difficult, Growing up, we didn't have a lot of money, but I was so interested in science, and, my dad, both my parents were so smart, and he started teaching me a little bit about science, so I went off to college. I started experimenting in college, okay?
Why don't you tell us more about the experimenting?
Science. I started experimenting with radioactivity in college. And
well, you are French, so had to ask.
That's where I met my husband. Husband. And actually, we worked together, and we just studied science together, and it was just, it was amazing. We started making more money off of the experiments that we had done, and then that, fueled the next experiments, and it really it all worked off each other, and it was perfect.
Well, that's very lovely, Mrs. Curie. Thank you so much for coming in with us today.
Thank you for having me.
It was a pleasure meeting you, and we're going to see our next guest.
And we're back with our next guest, Edwin Hubble.
So, Mr. Hubble, what is it that you're so well known for?
Well, you see, the galaxy that we live in, the Milky Way, it's not the only galaxy in the universe. There are multiple different galaxies, and each one expands constantly, just as the universe does. As you can see here with this model, it's not just the galaxy moving as it usually is, but it's also expanding and getting larger.
How did you figure out that there are other galaxies beyond the Milky Way?
You see, I used my Hooker telescope to look
Your
at the...
Hooker telescope.
My Hooker telescope.
Yes.
To look at the Andromeda Nebula. And I noticed that it expanded. Now, with using my formulas from physics and calculus and other majors that I did in Oxford University, I was able to conclude that with that expanding, other stars would have to be moving farther away. And because of that, that means that the galaxy that we live in has to be expanding as well. And with that, there are other galaxies, millions, trillions in the universe, expanding along with it.
So, Dr. Hubble, what about more things on Earth? What else do you do in your free time?
Yes. Well, before I really got into the whole science and galaxies things, I used to love basketball. I was actually a basketball coach.
Lovely.
Yes.
Anything you want to conclude on?
It expands. It gets bigger, always.
Yes.
Very good point.
Always expand.
Well, thank you, Mr. Hubble. for your
Dr.
time.
Hubble, everyone.
It gets bigger.
All right.
It gets bigger.
Yeah.
It's bigger. It keeps
Yeah.
going.
All right.
And
Yeah.
back to the commercials.
Yeah.
It gets getting bigger. It keeps getting bigger. It's
Yeah.
expanding. It's expanding.
And now, for our next guest, who might be a little bit more of a controversial one, John T. Scopes. bit about yourself and why you're here tonight.
Well, I'm a substitute public high school teacher, so I decided to teach the kids about evolution and how basically we became humans from evolving from monkeys.
Interesting, and you excluded the gospel.
Well, yeah, it's dumb.
Okay. So this whole arrest thing going on, people say it was just a setup for the publicity. Was it a setup? Was it
It
all
most
fake?
definitely was not.
Well, it just seems so bizarre that something so simple got you into jail. Do you think, you really don't think it's just publicity for science?
Because, I mean, I saw it in the papers, and I know you saw it in the papers.
Well, this is something I strongly believe in. Everyone should know evolution is real.
Okay.
Alright.
All right, Mr. Scopes. Well,
We're gonna go to the next guest. Thank you, Mr. Scopes. Have a nice day.
yeah, well, we'll see you at the zoo sometime. And now for our next guest, Frederick Banting.
That was a lovely piece. Thank you, Mr.
Thank you,
Banting, for
Mr.
that.
Banting. Really.
You're welcome.
So, Dr. Banting, why don't you tell us about your work with insulin and treating diabetes?
Well, a very influential inspiration of mine was Dr. Schaefer, who he discovered insulin, and from that discovery, I was able to work off of his findings, and I was able to figure out how to extract insulin from the pancreas by closing the pancreatic duct, allowing me to extract the insulin right out of there.
Wonderful work. Sure, it's going to save many lives. Now,
Yeah.
thank you, Mr.
Yeah,
Banting.
I did it for all the diabetics out there.
All right.
He did it for the diabetics.
Did it for the diabetics. Thinking of the children.
Yes.
Thank you, Dr. Banting. You're welcome.
Thank you, Mr.
You're welcome.
Banting.
Dr. Banting.
Dr. Banting.
And our next guest, Alexander Fleming. So, why don't you tell us a little bit about your research and what you've done?
Well, I was fascinated by infectious diseases and how they were created and things like that. So, I was working with the flu, and in a petri dish, I managed to find this mold that kept growing and basically killed things around it. So, and it went from there, and even after it's distilled 800 times, it still lives.
Interesting. So you still have, you could treat all kinds of diseases with this. Any bacterial diseases, right?
Any.
Really? So like syphilis?
It could, definitely. I don't see why not.
Because I have a friend with syphilis who
Your
I'm
friend's
terribly
name?
sorry.
His name? That's not important. What his name is?
No, I think it is. I think.
No.
the
I don't think
audience-
it's important. I think that
needs to
really he
know
needs to.
Who has syphilis?
I
Mr.
think that it's
Bezzosi.
really
No,
just.
Mr. Bezzosi, please tell us who has syphilis.
I'm not at liberty to give that information.
I think you are, though. Did you read the contract?
So
So I called it penicillin.
okay,
Yeah.
that's
Is that all?
is that all?
Basically.
Really?
Interesting. Who
Interesting.
has syphilis?
It's a close friend of mine.
Yeah. What's your friend's name?
I'm not at liberty to give the information.
You know what?
on my friend with syphilis.
I'm working on some more stuff in
Yeah?
my lab, so I gotta go. You guys have fun.
Really?
Yes.
Really?
Yep.
So just
Just let me know who your friend is with syphilis.
I'll write to
Give
you.
it a try. Yeah, of course.
Yeah.
Of course.
Is his name John?
No, it's not.
Yeah.
It's not. I don't have syphilis.
So I think it's time to say bye to our guests.
Yeah, I think it's time to say goodnight, and it's time to go out of here.
Monkeys, we're all monkeys. You're a monkey, you're a monkey. We're all monkeys. Oh, we're monkeys.
You need this more than I do.
Expanding, it's expanding. Everything, the universe, everything is expanding.
The monkeys!
It's getting bigger.
The monkeys are
expanding. They're expanding. It's expanding. Do you understand? It's getting bigger. It's getting bigger. It's expanding. It's